You've gone from working in factories to cleaning bathrooms to cutting hair to doing things that sometimes people wouldn't be willing to do. What has that taught you about the dignity of all work?
Probably 3 or 4 years ago, I realized, okay, these aren't things that you must do. This isn't bondage, because clearly I enjoy doing this. Clearly I enjoy being busy and I love having a task. So instead of approaching it as something that I must do, as if it's a job that I have to do, this is what I like to do. My mindset in there is like, this is a project. It's art. It's not something that I'm tied to or is a must. I get to do it, and this is what I love to do. So now I enjoy the toil.
Hey everybody, this is Caller ID. We're calling about your identity, your direction, and what you're doing with your life. I'm Brandon Davis Wells. Let's dig into what we're really doing here.
Every once in a while, you meet somebody who reminds you that the most interesting stories don't always come with impressive titles or flashy resumes, but they come with presence, curiosity, and the ability to truly listen. Today's guest is one of those people. If you've ever sat in a barber chair and walked away feeling like you got more than a haircut, you already understand his philosophy. Time in the chair is so much more than a haircut. Matt Trukovich currently serves as a barber at 419 Barbershop in Ashland. But his journey is wound through factory floors, entrepreneurship, running an MMA fighting organization, and even more impressive, a relentless pursuit of meaning, discipline, purpose, deeply philosophical, but also at the same time intensely practical, very kind, and one of the most thoughtful people I've ever met. We graduated from high school in the same time frame, but our paths didn't really cross until the last few years, and I'm grateful that they did. Conversations with Matt tend to linger long after they're over, and that's a good thing. So this episode, though, isn't about barbering. It's not about any certain roles or titles. It's about identity, purpose, masculinity, discipline, failure, growth, all the things that we talk about on the Caller ID podcast week after week, and why listening might be the most underrated leadership skill that we have. This is my call with Matt Trukovich. Matt, thank you for jumping on the call, my man.
It's an honor to be here. I'm truly honored.
I met you sort of by happenstance because I needed a haircut and was walking down Main Street and said, this place looks cool. And I popped in and you guys were so busy. You're like, yeah, you got to make an appointment. And so I made an appointment. And growing up as somebody with a mother who ran a hair salon, I'm very particular about who I let cut my hair. But I knew after my first appointment, I'd be back. And it wasn't that the haircut brought me back, although it was very good. It was the fact that we had conversations immediately and I felt seen and heard. What does that do for you, and why did you jump into the barber profession after years of doing other things?
That's the reason I love barbering. Is everyone that I talk to is a chance to learn something, regardless of where they are in class, society. I've learned things from people that, most people wouldn't even take the time to listen to. And that's amazing. But what led me to barbering was my barber. My factory was getting ready to close. And because they considered us losing our job to foreign trade, I got a trade readjustment allowance for education. And I was talking to my barber about what was going on. And she said, you should go to barber school. And ever since she said that, it clicked and I ran with it.
How do you describe when somebody asks you what you do? How do you describe it? Because I would say, and my mother would probably agree with this as a longtime beautician, you might say, well, I cut people's hair, but it's so much more than that, right? She always felt like when she had somebody in the chair, it was like her chance to speak into their lives, but also to listen. How do you explain that when you talk with people?
When someone asks me what I do for a living, it's barbering. The haircut is where the financial transaction is taking place. The real fruit's free for me and for them. And the conversation is what brings people back. And it's what I look for. There's days I'll look at my list of the clients and be like, today's going to be amazing. And we'll pick up right where we left off in the last conversation. I know what their dogs' names are. I know what projects are that are working on the house, what traumas they're going through. There's some days where someone's celebrating, getting ready to be married, and then getting ready to go to a funeral. The emotional roller coaster, it's a lot, but I love it. And just learning about the human experience is what keeps me going to work and loving it.
You're sort of shepherding people while they're in that chair, right?
Yeah, but because I'm only a barber, it's hard to get canceled when you're just a barber and you say something that someone doesn't agree with. But yeah, there is some shepherding that happens, and I'm being shepherded as well. The more life experience that you understand, then the more wisdom you can gain and apply it to your own life as well as my life.
I love the fact that when I sit down in your chair, we don't always agree on everything, and that's awesome, right? But I've walked away at least being able to think and process through either some things that I brought in or that you brought to me, and we walk away going, well, that was fascinating. When you were 18 years old, did you ever envision yourself doing something like this?
No, I actually worked for Gebhardt's when I was in high school. I was sweeping the floor, running the register. It was part of my schooling program.
Yeah.
And he tried to tell me to go to barber school right out of high school. Like he was going to pay me and have me as an employee. And I just couldn't see myself doing that. And here we are.
So it just took a little bit of a detour. What did you do when you came out of high school at 18?
I worked a few factory jobs in Ashland. And then my cousin called me. He was at Ideal Electric, and he was the IT guy. And he said they're hiring a job to take out the trash and clean the bathrooms. And then he asked me what I was making at the time. And I was going to get a $3 an hour raise running a machine to cleaning bathrooms. And me, that was a no-brainer. And then I was there for 17 years after that.
What's the biggest thing you learned doing that?
How important your coworkers are, your relationship with your coworkers. I mean, I was in a factory, but I was always in a job where I could move from place to place. I was just never standing in one position for the whole shift because I can't do that. But the relationship, because I was 20 when I started there, that place raised me. Like most of the people I worked with were older, wiser. They took me under their wing. I wasn't from a lot of their backgrounds. I mean, I miss those people so much. Not the job, but the people. We were a family.
I've talked about this before, the importance of what coworkers bring to your life, because you spend more time with them generally than your family, right?
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time when I went on the road working in television production. I was pretty narrow-minded. I will admit that, because I grew up in a really kind of conservative, sort of tight window of how to think about things. And then when I traveled the country with people from all over the country, I learned so much, but it took me some time to open up to some of that. And I'm sure there was probably a little bit of that when you started working, when you jumped out of high school.
Yeah. Even though it's Ashland and Mansfield and people are similar, but you can live on the outside of town. And then I grew up on Cleveland Avenue and Virginia Avenue. The people that live outskirts of Ashland and the people that are living in town, it's a different lifestyle. We might have similar mindsets, but my travels, when I've traveled to the States or even abroad, that's when my eyes really opened up, because there is more than one way to do this thing. And if you've only done it your one way, how can you know that that's the only way or the best way to do things? That is narrow-minded, and that's a epidemic.
Tell me more about your travel. Where have you traveled that you found incredibly interesting, that you pulled away from something from a life, learning, whatever, that you traveled and you said you came back different?
One of my jobs at Ideal was on the test floor. We test motors and generators, and then part of our job was giving hospitality to the end user. So these people are coming from Egypt and China. I'm meeting people from all over the globe and talking culture. Well, one of our engineers was from India, and him and I created a friendship. And he knew by talking to me that I was just in love with culture and new ideas and things that weren't the norm. His brother was getting married in Hyderabad, India, and he invited me to go for the wedding.
Wow.
And he's like, you can stay with my family. The only thing you have to pay for is the flights. And so I jumped on that. My trip to Hyderabad, India was the most profound experience that I've had.
Tell me more, because number one, the fact that you had developed such a relationship with a colleague and to be invited to their sibling's wedding, right? I want to hear more about that.
So it was a Muslim wedding. It was an arranged marriage. It was your standard, what you hear about. But I stayed in their house, and the call to prayer speaker was right outside my bedroom window. So in the morning, the call to prayer is going off, and they're going to the mosque and they're praying. And every morning they would greet me. The neighborhood kids, like they're 14, 10 to 14, 16. They're all waiting outside in the morning. They're treating me as if I'm John Cena, just because they don't get very many Americans that will actually go down into the neighborhoods and be with them and see how they live. And they were so nice and so welcoming and so warm, even though that I've been told that Muslims are our enemy, or Muslims, we should be afraid of these people. And here I am in the middle of them, and I've never felt more welcomed anywhere I've ever been. It was just profound.
It is why I think people need to travel if they can, right? It's easy to say, yeah, you should. If you're able to afford to send your kids somewhere, to go somewhere yourself, to get outside of where you grew up, whether that's Ashland County, whether that's Summit County, or whether that's Manhattan, you need to see how other people live, and it exposes you. I spent a semester abroad in college in Cardiff. Now, I sort of chickened out by choosing an English-speaking country to do my exchange program, but I will say it still was revolutionary in the way I looked at life. You've landed in working in a service industry. Was there a moment when you started doing this where it felt like it clicked?
I mean, there's days that feel like work and I'm tired, just like any other job. But there's never been a day in any other job where I left work and said to myself, I can't believe I get to do this for a living. That happens 2 or 3 times a week being a barber. There's days I walk to my car and I'm like, this is incredible. And I'm making more than I made when I was working in a factory. And I'm my own boss, and it's free. And I can say the things that I want to say and make connections. And it's ever changing. It's a beautiful place to be.
Would you have appreciated this if you had gone right into it out of working at Gebhardt's at 18?
I don't think so, because the trip to India wouldn't have happened. Who knows? I could have been burnt out by now. I don't think I would. Becoming a barber is hard to build your clientele. Mm-hmm. With me being from Ashland and running the fight promotions and being well known in Ashland, I have a lot of friends and connections. It was not hard to build clientele at all. Maybe 3 months and I was off and running. That in itself was a blessing too. So I had made my bed beforehand, I guess.
You did some years of running MMA promotions. Tell me about what started that, what prompted that, what was that like? Because as somebody who has never really dove into that world, I find it fascinating, but also from the outside, it looks like it can be toxic from a masculinity standpoint, whatever words you want to use on that. But tell me more about that, because I'm curious.
My brother, he fought in tough man competitions, which is like amateur boxing. And then he would hype it up and all this. And then in 2000, I looked at him like, I'm going to do tough man. It's not that. It's 3 1-minute rounds. It's nothing. So I went and did that. And then MMA started to gain popularity, but I could not wrestle. I had no ground skills at all. I met a guy that was a jiu-jitsu instructor, and then I met a couple AU wrestlers. So I started cross-training with those guys. And then we would go to fights. I started as a fan. I would pay this money and go to these fights, and there would be a 90-minute intermission for the promoter to sell beer. You want to get home till 2 a.m. So we would go to these fights, and we had fighters. We opened our own gym, and we had fighters, and we'd take 5 fighters and fill half a card. And then my friend Tony Prey, who was a police officer in Columbus, he started training with us, and he was looking around the gym. He's like, we could run our own promotion. We don't really have to. We can start our own organization. Without him, I would have never started, but he's the one that talked me into starting it. And then once we got rolling, he was too busy with being a police officer, and his wife, they traveled back and forth from Japan. He gave me the promotion, basically. We were partners, and then it became my wife and I's.
You're doing this on the side while working at Ideal?
Yeah. It was more of a hobby than it was. It never really paid the bills, but.
Quick pause. If you're enjoying this, make sure you're following or subscribed wherever you listen. It helps more than you think. If it's hitting home, take 10 seconds. 5 stars. Share it with somebody who needs it. Just a quick reminder. That's okay, but it scratched an itch, though, right?
Yeah, for 11 years, it was amazing. The funniest part about it is Saturday night. There's 1,200 people at Fairhaven Hall, and we're rock stars on Saturday, and then Monday morning comes, I'm pushing a broom again or whatever it was. My boss had no idea what was actually happening. None of my older family didn't even know. These news journal would get behind our stories, and there'd be pictures of the crowd. I don't know if they thought we were running a fight club in the backyard or what, but it was cool when they first came and saw that it was a legitimate thing we were doing.
That I talk about it in every podcast. You've heard me say with that whole ikigai thing, but about the four circles that come together, and hopefully you can do something that you love, something you're good at, something you get paid to do, and something the world needs. And sometimes I've told people, I've told friends, I've told students, I've told clients, sometimes you have to piece those things together with multiple things, and it's kind of like what you're doing. I mean, not that you didn't necessarily love cleaning bathrooms, but probably not, right? I mean,
Right.
you did it because it filled some of those other roles. What would you tell somebody when it comes to sort of combining those efforts to try to reach that center of ikigai?
I tell people that all the time. So if you're working a job that's not fulfilling, but it's paying the bills, you need a passion project, a hobby that you're passionate about. Because a lot of times your passion will create the next avenue for you to go down. So you need to pay your bills. That's the reality that we live in. So you're going to work 40 hours a week. You have so much more time that we waste on binge watching or whatever it is. Find something that you're passionate about. And 3 years from now, you could be making $150,000 pursuing your passion, and your hobbies become your job. That's what's missing in a lot of young people is their passion. There's not a passion. They don't know what direction to go in.
How are we failing them then?
Well, the mindset that it's harder today for them than it was for our parents or for us. Things are more expensive, but I think that mindset that's being sold is to keep people where they're at. I don't buy into that narrative. Things are always hard. Things are hard every generation. And we could all say that. We could all make the excuse, well, it was easier for my parents. We should not allow that into our minds. That's a disease, and it can keep you down. That voice that you tell yourself, that's your reality.
That fixed versus growth mindset that I know a lot of people have talked about in the last few years. You're not wrong. You're deeply philosophical, but also practical, I would say, in how you approach those things. Where do you think that kind of blend came from?
Probably my life, my life up until this point. I mean, I was 19 and when my daughter was born, I was in a lot of trouble in my teenage years in Ashland. And once you're in trouble in Ashland, if you're not squeaky clean, you're going to continue to be in trouble. I mean, I think I was on probation for 6 or 7 years. And then my daughter was born, and that changed the trajectory of my life. Certainly. It wasn't about me, and the rage that I had from my childhood was not going to help my daughter. So I had to get over that. I had to redirect for sure. But just the trials that I've lived through and the things that I've done, the more you do, the more you see, the more insight you'll have.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Listen, you've gone from working in factories to cleaning bathrooms to cutting hair to doing things that sometimes people wouldn't be willing to do. What has that taught you about the dignity of all work?
Yeah, and the garden.
And
the toil is really where it's at. The toil is where it's at. I'm a kind of guy that has to be busy. I'm always doing something. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, I realized, okay, these aren't things that you must do. This isn't bondage, because clearly I enjoy doing this. Clearly I enjoy being busy, and I love having a task. So instead of approaching it as something that I must do, as if it's a job that I have to do, this is what I like to do. And just that mindset switch alone has made right now I'm remodeling a bedroom, and it's my mindset in there is like this is a project. It's art. It's not something that I'm tied to or is a must. I get to do it, and this is what I love to do. So now I enjoy the toil.
You get a lot of men in your barber chair, and they'll open up, and a lot of men don't open up in other spots. Why is that?
I'm not sure, because I honestly think that was a God-given gift, because I've always had that. When I was a kid, my friends would stay the night and they would get homesick and they'd cry and I'd cry. And my dad's like, why are you crying? And I think I feel people's energy. I'm an empath. I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but I can feel when my family's here and things aren't right. And everyone's acting like everything's right, but I feel that there's something off with them. Or when I was in barber school, one of the older Puerto Rican guys, he said that I had the force because the way that people would open up.
I love that.
And it's something that I don't take for granted. I do
Yeah.
love it. And I cherish the things that people share with me. And I know that it's sacred and it's private. It's between us. That's something that needs to be, it should be written in every barbershop wall that what's said here stays here.
Almost like a Hippocratic oath for that doctor.
Yeah, because if that goes away, then we lose the magic of our craft. If someone comes and tells us something, then we run around and tell everyone else. That's a terrible place to be.
What do you think most modern men are struggling with the most, but don't admit?
Purpose is a big one. But with the young men, they won't say yes to that cleaning the toilet job. That's holding them back, because when you say yes to one door, you open the door and there's 15 doors behind that door that you didn't want to open. So by me saying yes to, even though it was a $3 an hour raise, saying yes to cleaning the toilets, I had 5 other jobs in that building, and I just kept bidding up and bidding up. The test floor was like the highest paid job in the shop, and I learned so much about how electricity works and generators work, but I had to say yes to cleaning the toilets for me to get to that point.
Do you ever feel judged for not going to college?
Oh yeah, but not from people close to in my family and my close friend circle. My little brother's the only one in my family that's ever gone to college. So it wasn't like a family thing, but yeah. But now society's starting to realize that a lot of those college degrees it's just an added bill that you have. It's just
Yep. You're an early adapter. Early adopter is what you need to tell people, right? Yeah. I ask people that sometimes, cautiously, because I also know that it's not a necessity, and I worked in higher ed, and there were occasions where I had students come in, and I just short of would have to push them towards, are you sure you should be in college? That this is the right path for you? You're spending a lot of money, or your parents' money, or debt, or however, and those conversations are difficult. Do you see, this is way down the rabbit trail or rabbit hole or whatever, but do you see the trades continuing to explode like they have been lately?
Yeah, absolutely. Because not only is it a trade to make money, but when you learn a trade, you're bringing something. Let's say the grid goes down. The grid goes down, and our local communities are our tribes. Mm-hmm. What is it that you bring to the tribe? You could go to a university, and 100 out of 1,000 degrees are worthless when the lights go out. But if you have a trade and you can build a house, or you're an electrician or whatever it may be, you're actually bringing something to the tribe. And that's another thing that young men are lacking today. If the lights go out, I mean, this is a terrible way to say it, but a lot of people are just another hungry mouth to feed. Your personality and your cute jokes, they're not gonna help us sustain things. So if every young man just had one thing that they could bring, if shit hits the fan, then they would feel better about who they are as a person, what they bring to the table. And a lot of people will tell you, well, we don't need those skills, but if we're not mentally well without them, if we feel like some part of us is missing, maybe we do need that skill. Yeah. Whatever it may be.
What was the hardest professional season of your life?
The end of the MMA stuff was probably the most emotionally hard. Because that was a huge part of who I was. As a man, it's probably hard for women too, but I can't speak to that. But as a man, we build this identity for ourselves, our persona, and a lot of it is wrapped around our jobs or what it is we do for a living. Yeah. And to close a chapter that means that much to me, or means that much to my persona, to close that chapter and start anew, that was hard. It was definitely a season of, there was a season of death there.
Yeah,
but I didn't love it anymore. It was time for me to move on.
I think a lot of people stay in those things so long because of stay too long in those things, because we often wrap our identity into the things that we do. What advice would you give people out there that are maybe in that cycle where they're trying to figure that out? Any wisdom for them?
Well, it's not just that we are wrapped in it. We don't want to be the male ego doesn't want to be the new guy. That inner voice, even when I was 39 years old, walking into barber school in downtown Cleveland. And it was like 30, whites, blacks, and Puerto Ricans. Mm-hmm. I was out of my element. The voice inside my head was literally trying to get me to go back to my car. Like, what are you doing? all the way into the school. What are you doing? What are you doing? Go back to your car. So that voice, you have to walk through it. And the next day it was there, but it's much quieter. The next day, it just gets quieter and quieter. That voice will literally keep you. If you're paying the bills, you're at a mediocre job, it'll keep you there if you let it. But if you say no to that voice and yes to whatever it is that you want to pursue, each day that the no voice gets quieter. It gets quieter and quieter. But it's in all of us. And a lot of people will look at you and say, oh, it's easy for you. No, it's not easy. It's not easy. But if you do it once, you can do it again. To reinvent yourself that's what evolution is. That's what we're supposed to be doing here.
I can relate on various levels to all of this. And I think when we share these stories about the struggles that of that inner voice, that sometimes two competing voices, right, is what I look at it. And some people say, yeah, it's the angel here and the devil here or whatever. Yeah. But like there is a little bit of that, being able to fight through. But how do you go about discerning which is the voice you should listen to and which is the voice that you shouldn't when it comes to career and those sorts of decisions?
Well, through my spiritual practice and learning about spirituality and religion, the truth when you feel it, the truth when you hear it, the truth when you see it. So anything that's self-deprecating is not, that's, everyone thinks the devil only tempts you with glitz and glamour. No, the devil can keep you right where you're at through that shit-talking voice that wants to keep you where you're at. Like anything that's anything that's gonna keep you still or idle. The idle hands are the devil's playground. That kind of stuff is like, we should always be working towards bettering ourselves and going towards the truth, whether that be Christ or whatever it is that you choose. I feel like once you hear the truth, it just resonates with you. Yeah. The Holy Spirit in you, you know what the Holy Spirit is, and you know what the ego is. Yeah. It's like when you get your feelings hurt. When you get your feelings hurt or someone makes you mad, it's always the ego. Always. If you step back for a second and realize, okay, that's always part of me that it doesn't have to be affected.
How do you define a good career right now?
Something that contributes to your community, something that allows you to make enough money to make ends meet and to travel. My wife and I, we were talking about travel and how important it is. And you said it is a luxury, for sure. It's a luxury. But we just had a conversation last night about buying less things that aren't necessity around the house. Amazon makes it so easy to just purchase things and then you have 5 seconds of gratification.
One of the things that my wife and I talked about when we moved to North Carolina, because we got rid of so much of what we had in Ohio, because we wanted it to be easier to move. But there was also a purpose behind it. Similarly, was I want to be a lot more of a minimalist. So if 18-year-old Matt walked into your shop today and he sits down in your chair, what would you want to tell him, or what would you not want to tell him yet?
That's a great question. I would tell him to believe in himself, to quit listening to that voice, to the voice of doubt. And even growing up, there's a lot of people in my family that were doubters. Like when I went to start the fights, they're like, you know how much insurance is going to cost? It's just, there's always reasons to not do something. Just don't listen to those voices. You follow your dreams and your passions. Show up for work. don't call off. Because you can do both at the same time, believe it or not. Yeah,
that's real.
That's probably what I would tell them.
I always ask people this question about Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm or Ted Lasso. And working in the service industry, you'll have I think a unique perspective on this. But what situations trigger your inner Larry David, your frustration or misalignment or insecurity in your sort of daily grind at work?
People not seeing what I see in them when they don't see it in themselves. It frustrates me. Or like where we were raised to lead by example. Sometimes your example is not witnessed. Sometimes you can do these things that just start a culture, but it's not even being seen, or those types of things. Or when people come in and just regurgitate what they saw on the last Fox News clip. I like when people come in with original thought. Like, how do you actually feel? I know you just saw that, but you're just repeating what you just heard. So,
what brings out, and we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, your inner Ted Lasso. Like, what brings you the most purpose, joy, excitement about your day when you look at your sheet and you go, oh, here's these 4 or 5 people are coming in today. I can't wait for this. What brings that?
The connection because it's as if we're growing together. There's people that are studying their dreams and they're telling me about their dreams. So now I have to go home and I have to read. If I don't have to, but now I'm passionate about learning more about what dreams are, the maps of dreams and maps of meaning. So next time when we talk again, I'll have a little bit more understanding about that.
This might be a layup for you, but how do you hope people feel when they leave the barbershop?
I want them to feel better from how they look, but I want them to feel hopeful, motivated. I mean, the look thing is there because everyone knows that when you leave a barbershop,
Yeah.
you just feel crispy and everything's good. But I want them to feel a deeper purpose, driven, motivated. There was a kid that worked in a pizza shop, slinging dough, and he was talking about how he was just sick of all this. And I'm like, dude, there's a job right uptown that pays $4 or $5 more an hour. And it was like one of those 3 12-hour shifts on the weekend deals. He quit his pizza job, got that job, just bought his first house, is getting married. So sometimes it's just one conversation to make that flip that switch in people's minds. If I can do that once a year, that's worth it all day long.
When you look ahead, do you see yourself doing this forever?
Yeah, I'll do this forever as long as my body will allow. The good thing about barbering is like I don't have to. It's not like a construction job where I have to punch in for 10 hours. If I'm 60, 65, I could do 3 or 4 haircuts a day and call it good.
All right, let's do a little word association. Success.
Fulfillment.
Failure.
A learning opportunity.
Identity.
Ever changing. You can become whoever you want to become. The real you is the story that you tell yourself. That's it.
Money.
Energy system.
Say more about that.
I often tell my clients, ever since I quit worrying about money, I haven't had to worry about money. So in our Western culture, we have this idea that you're gonna make this money and then you're gonna stockpile it and save it until when you're older, and then you're gonna spend it. An energy system isn't an energy system unless it lets go of itself. So if I spend all day cutting hair, and let's say I have $300, and then I go to my favorite restaurant, and then I tip my favorite waitress 2 haircuts worth of tips, that's an energy system. I took my labor, turned that into an energy system, and then fed it into something else that I approved of. Voting with our dollars, all that is important. If we only spent money on things that we believed in, the world would look so much different. So it's an energy system.
I've never heard it used in that phrase, and it almost kind of revolutionizes the way I think of it. Not that I didn't think of money as a tool, but it's another step to call it an energy system.
I believe that's what God is. God is an energy system that let go of himself. And here we are.
Ambition.
Purpose. Ambition gives you purpose. It really does. It gives you direction. A northern star, really.
All right, I will give you the last word, and it is, what piece of wisdom or insight would you offer to somebody that's trying to figure out their work, identity, purpose right now going forward?
That's a heavy burden.
It's a big question.
Yeah.
But you can always try to narrow it down. Like what's one thing you want somebody to walk away from Matt Trukovich, the wisdom that you've gained?
Say yes to more doors, even if it looks like an opportunity that everyone expects to say yes to the job that they want for the rest of their life. And if it doesn't look like the job they want for the rest of their life, they turn it down. Like if you see a construction boss in a truck and a house and all these things that you would like for your life, he probably said yes to running that shovel. And then he worked his way up. Like, open more doors, say yes to more things, and then you'll be amazed how many more opportunities will be available to you. And find a passion, find something to do that you're passionate about, some kind of hobby outside of just consumption. Western culture, we consume television, we consume reels, and find a passion that's outside of just consuming. we just have to be mindful of that too.
Matt, thank you so much for jumping on the call. I can't thank you enough. You have thrown 35 minutes of nuggets at us here today to think about.
No, thank you. I was nervous and wasn't sure if I was going to have the words, but as soon as I heard your voice and saw your face, I was ready to go.
You're too kind. That's Matt Trukovich.
Thanks for listening to the Caller ID podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe with all of your friends on all of your social media platforms. Thanks again. Signing off, Brandon Davis Wells.